To the flag. Moving on to reports with Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Michael Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. Students, thank you very much for coming out tonight. Most important people in the room. Staff, thank you. Parents, obviously. It seems that there might be something interesting tonight. I'm told, I haven't been told what it is, but I have been told expect something beyond statistics and numbers. That is the main purpose for tonight, statistics and numbers. Notice we have our Board of Education goals posted up here, and one of those is to continue developing a data-savvy Board of Education, and this Board of Education keeps that as a central element of their day-to-day work as we spend time focusing on student programs. So tonight's program is really the middle school talking about their program, where we are as a program, and where we're going as a program, from a statistical perspective, but also from a qualitative perspective. So I'm looking forward to that. Also some questions recently came up that were brought to me. I figured I'd give you some answers on it. Ms. Reed had brought to us an idea that she learned at a Board of Education convention recently regarding NFA West. And it's a program down at Newburgh Free Academy. It's a sub-campus of Newburgh Free Academy it's kind of an alternative program. Really, without getting into any of the program, the question was, are there seats available if we have students that fit that profile? So I had conversation with Dr. Padilla, who is the superintendent of Newburgh, and yes, there is the potential for us to partner with Newburgh if there are those needs and there are seats available. So the avenue's open. Okay? Also, if you don't follow us on Twitter or Facebook or like us or one of those things, please do, because we also put a lot of information out on our Facebook and our Twitter feeds. The most recent really big piece of news was a video that was produced by the New York State School Boards Association, further highlighting an award that this school received for its STEAM program, Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math program, that really takes those areas and fuses them into a really exciting program for our sixth graders. I encourage you to take a look at that video. It really is pretty special as far as what the staff put together, what our students are interested in, and the recognition that we got at the statewide level, one of only 3 districts in the entire state, and on top of that, this school won $5,000 for that. So really a spectacular piece of work. The policy committee is reviewing one section of policy and one individual policy. We've got the section 6000 policy set that is focused on personnel, and an individual policy, which is policy 7521, which is an adjustment to a current policy that will allow for the use of Narcan, which is allowable under state law as long as we develop policy on it. So I just ask at some point in time to get some direction from the policy committee. Are we ready to bring those elements, those 2 sets, the policy 6000 section and 7521 to the board for a first read? And if I get some feedback on that, we can do that for the next meeting. One probable and one potential. There is the probability at the next Board of Education meeting that I'm going to ask the board to approve a staffing increase. We have a probability for a special education need that will be filled with a teaching assistant. Right now we're going through some of the finer intricacies of deciding is that something we have to do or can do in a different way. If it is determined that we have to do it that way, I will bring a recommendation to the Board of Education at the next meeting. We do have that money to pay for it in a contingency budget. It's positions that we hold in abeyance until we need them, so that is certainly accounted for in our budget. It's just the need may arise between now and the next meeting. And the next one is the potential for a calendar adjustment. Ms. Heck, along with our staff, has been working, believe it or not, on preparing for assessments and scheduling of assessments that are going to be coming up in the spring. We start early. We'd like to be ahead of the game, right, Ms. Heck? But one of the elements that is an adjustment for us, for the last couple of years, we've been scoring the tests in-house with our staff. It's a very important participation for our staff to have their hands on our kids' papers. It's a very important experience. It appears that regulations are against us at this point. We can still score in-house. However, we would have to partner with multiple schools in that experience. It appears that there aren't a lot of schools in our area that are going to be scoring on their own. What that means for us, potentially, is to make an adjustment to our calendar, because we carved out 2 superintendent's conference days in the spring for scoring. So if we're not going to use those for scoring, we may pull those back and make them, sorry kids, attendance days, depending upon the needs of what we end up with testing and with other potential ideas for staff development. So I'll let you know how that progresses as we do a little more research on it. Important event next week, Power Up Night here at the middle school. If you haven't signed up, please do. The last 2 that I've come to have been just extraordinary. It's such a wonderful night watching parents and students come together with a lot of experts in a lot of different areas teach. It's just such a great experience. So if you haven't signed up for Power Up Night, please do. And I'm just going to put out there again, if any board member is interested in a building tour, I'm more than happy to put those together. I'd also like to extend that if anyone is interested in me putting together a tour of the Career and Technical Education Center at Orange Ulster BOCES, they reminded superintendents last week that they are open for tours there too. So please let me know, and I'd be more than happy to make arrangements to take a trip out there with you. That would be definitely a program you'd want to see during the day, because you want to see the kids in action at those programs. So I'll be very flexible as far as how you want to put that together if there's interest. So just let me know. And with that, I pass it back to you.
Thank you. Moving on to Ulster, Orange Ulster BOCES report. Mrs. Reed, do you have anything to report?
Yes, last night we had our meeting, and it is basically, we were talking about Supermarket and everything, the epidemic that's going on with the drugs within Orange County and Ulster County, actually within New York State. Orange County came and presented last night to us and did give us some feedback, and that it is definitely growing, so the increases of deaths from drugs. Right now, they have over 300 people in training to use the Narcan within the school districts, county-wise, police department, in the schools. Some of the schools are putting the Narcan in the AZ cabinets. The other thing is to also remind parents, if you have prescription drugs, please don't keep them in the house, bring them down to the police department. They have boxes for you to remove them there. The other thing is that they were saying is it's not, sometimes you think it's a particular person that would be doing this, and it's not. Sometimes it could be your AP kids, athletic students that do athletics. It's anybody nowadays. So they ask to keep your eyes open, to see, to tell the parents. There are training out there for them. I did bring back the sheets that have mobile mental health, text board for teens. That's a good thing for the kids to talk to somebody anytime that they can talk. There are other resources out there, drug and alcohol counseling, that I'm going to give this to Mr. Brooks. They also brought, had dispensed things, and the treatments, and how to get help, and all that. So it's pretty scary right now. So for us, I would definitely recommend to the parents to please keep an eye out. If you're not using your painkillers, the fentanyl, or any of that, to please dispose of it out of your houses. And just keep an eye on our kids. And that's basically what we discussed last night. So there is help out there. Orange County Mental Health has a lot of resources to help with the phone number. So this way, maybe we can go to the each building and send it out. Or there's even training for parents to help them. But they do also have a training that they come to the schools and they do like a mock setup of a bedroom. And they ask the parents to come and look to see what they can see in the bedroom and teach the parents. So I was wondering if maybe we can get in touch with mental health or Orange Ulster BOCES. See if maybe we can set that up one night when we're doing something in the buildings with the parents. Other than that was basically it. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually skipped over Ulster BOCES, but Mr. Malazzo was not here. Did you attend? No. Okay. So moving on to our presentation of the night, it is a pleasure to announce Mrs. Deborah Clinton, principal of the middle school, and Mrs. Robin Heck, director of curriculum, who will be presenting our middle school academic review.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for coming tonight. We are very excited to host the meeting here and to review our programs with you, to look at some of that data, but also to focus on what makes Marlboro Middle School such a wonderful place, and that is our students and all of the great things that they bring to the building. And we're going to start our evening first with a video from our tech squad. So, Adriana?
Today we will watch a video with all the 3 A's, academics, arts, and athletics of MMS. Thank you.
This video was produced by our tech squad under the direction of Mrs. Weiss.
Thank you, Adriana. That was wonderful. I appreciate your help and effort on that. Hope everyone liked the video. We tried to represent the 3 A's as much as we could and really show our efforts on the whole child, the arts, the athletics, and the academics work in tandem to really create a well-rounded child as they graduate 8th grade. All right, a brief overview of the 2016-2017 school year. Going into the year, we had a goal of 95% for our attendance. We came up a little bit short at 94.06%, and that was broken down by grade. Currently this year, we are at 96.48%, so we're a good 2.5 points beyond where we were last year, so that's encouraging, and we really hope to keep that going forward throughout the year. As a result, some of our efforts to really make every child feel like they belong, that they have something to do, and they fit somewhere in the school and they are valued. Our opt-out rate continues a trend where math is a little bit higher at 38%, ELA has been 34%. We are noticing the grades that are coming up, 4th, 5th, this year 6th grade, the rates have been lower, so we're hoping that crest has passed. Going from 3 days to 2 days of the state testing, I'm hoping will help in that effort of decreasing the opt-out numbers. We continue to revise and update all curriculum maps to ensure we're teaching the right things. We review data all the time, every week, every month. We have team meetings. The teachers are wonderful at looking at the data and finding areas to improve upon and adjust. And we had 30 students take the Algebra Regents and 31 take the Living Environment, and everyone passed. So kudos to those teachers and those students. Ms. Clinton.
So before I go through the goals that we've established for this year, I would just like to take a moment and recognize all of the faculty and staff who joined us this evening and ask if they would please just stand for a moment. Faculty and staff. At the middle school, we are truly a team, and it takes everybody in this room to make the things that happen here a success. So, of course, we cannot forget to acknowledge the parents. So, parents, please stand up so we can give you a round of applause if you're here. I'd like to also, of course, thank the students here from the Tech Squad, and also thank Ms. Giacoya for providing from her class, the food and nutrition class, the snacks that you have over there. So I do hope that you will enjoy those. And of course, I have to make sure I thank a few of my favorite things. Thank you. So one of our essential, we're still striving in the direction, and it's such a pleasure to be here and to be able to tell you about all of these programs that we have, because just a few years ago, many of the things that you got to see in that video just a short time ago did not exist because of budget cuts. And we are in such a wonderful place now and really proud of all of the programs that we have for our students. And we are on the way to becoming an essential element schools to watch program here at the middle school because of the direction that we continue to go in. And our goal is, of course, to create a sense of belonging for all students at MMS. And we want to make sure that we continue to increase student engagement and connectivity academically, socially, and emotionally. In addition, we were concerned actually last year that our attendance rate never really made it to the 95%. So we put a lot of diligent work into that, but we want to continue to have that as one of our goals again for this year. And we put some different things in place, and we're tracking it very closely. And so far for the months of September and October, as you just saw, we are over that 95%. And of course, with the help of our Tech Squad, our one-to-one Chromebook initiative, and our STEAM program, and the $5,000 that we just won, we are going to continue to further implement our technology program and make sure that we provide students with opportunities for them to enter the world knowing more about the careers that are available around the STEAM opportunities that exist. So we continue to focus our areas around, are we teaching the right things, which we're feeling pretty confident about, but it's always something important to review. You're going to hear soon from some of our department chairs who are going to tell you how they're looking at it with their departments. And are we teaching them well? And then, of course, how do we know? And that's where some of our statistics will come into play. So one of the things that continues to trouble us with our data, so we use multiple data points, but is the state assessments and the number of opt-outs. So you can see in certain areas we have had a decrease, in almost all areas, from 2016 opt-outs to 2017. So that is one area that we continue to monitor and try to encourage students to participate in taking the state assessments, because they do provide us with some data that help drive our instruction.
All right, this slide shows level 3 and 4 achievement, which the state has deemed as proficient in a subject, math or ELA in this case. This slide looks at it by cohort. So the 9th grade cohort, every year they change grades, they go up higher and higher. So it's very important to look at comparing apples to apples, not always looking at 7th grade each and every year, because it's going to go up and down each year based on that cohort, the opt-out rates, the strengths and the weaknesses of that grade. So I find this to be the most valuable piece of data. And as you can see from the green, if you start in the upper left, from 6th grade to 7th grade ELA, we improved 9 points in the level 3 and 4 achievement, and another 13 points to 44% to 8th grade. And if you follow that, each cohort, we really did a nice job with each grade level, improving them year to year as they get older. Current 9th grade, bottom left, the 8th grade at 13% does not include the 30 students that took the algebra test, and there's 30 of them. And those students are automatically considered a level 3 or 4 student by the state, so that would put our numbers at 59%. So again, continuing a green trend. So this is just one piece of data that we look at, often to track how well we're doing. Some other positive highlights from School Meter that we could look at. Those numbers came out in August. Economically disadvantaged students. As you can see, we're top 2 in Ulster County in the 6th grade, number 1 in the 7th grade. In Orange County, number 2, number 5. Math 6th grade, number 2 in Ulster. Math 7th grade, number 2 in Ulster. So I think that's something our teachers should be very proud of. It is a population, as is the students with disabilities, that the numbers and the state scores are often lower. And so every school has that issue and that concern. I think we really did an amazing job being in the top tier for most of these categories. As you can see with students with disabilities, in the top 3rd in Ulster County, and everyone there listed in Orange County in the top half. So well done. And on to ELA 6 to 8 state testing. Again, this shows 6th grade year to year. So again, different kids. So we went down a little bit in 6th grade ELA, up in 7th grade ELA, up in 8th grade ELA. And we were top 3 in Ulster County in ELA in all 3 grade levels in 2006, 2017. So again, this is Hudak and your crew. Congrats on that. And I will hand it over to Mrs. Hudak at this time to talk a little more about ELA and what they're doing.
Thank you. The ELA department is pleased to have shown growth on our state assessments, but we are aware of the continued need to support our students in areas of grammar, reading, writing, and vocabulary. We carefully analyzed our results during a professional development session and have used this information to help guide our practice during the first quarter. Having this data in mind, we've continued to implement a school-wide writing format to bring our students to greater heights. To address gaps in grammar, we have continued to use No Red Ink, an interactive online program that addresses everything from commonly confused words to conjunctions. To address reading comprehension, we have subscribed to Front Row Ed, another powerful tool that fuses high-interest articles with testing questions. Teachers are able to change lexile levels to suit students' needs, while pupils are able to annotate text and self-assess their work to help increase their skill levels. Finally, in an effort to infuse technology and prepare our students for the future, many teachers have employed blended classroom models through Google Classroom and Edmodo, which gives students the opportunity to communicate with one another and with teachers, submit and edit work, and utilize online resources at home and with Chromebooks at school. With all of these programs in place, we continue to expand our practice and grow as professionals. As always, our top priority is our students and their continued success in ELA and state assessments. Over the summer, department members had the opportunity to attend writing workshops through the Hudson Valley Writing Project and the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Teacher Institute. Additionally, the department attended a breakout classroom workshop, and we are pleased to have purchased brand new kits to service all 3 grade levels. We feel that in order for our students to be engaged and maintain ownership of their learning, they must participate in activities that are hands-on, applicable to life experience, and provide them with important questions and themes. We have recently found success with activities beyond breakout, including Shark Tank, Socratic seminars, and mock trials. Recently, on Superintendent's Conference Day, we were able to analyze our STAR data with Karen Brooks and learn more about ways we can perceive our data. And finally, we continue to use valuable resources presented to us last year through trainings with Al in November to help increase student achievement through interactive websites such as Prism and Verso. To ensure our continued development as educators, we're looking forward to participating in the district's literacy committee and attending various writing and technology-based workshops and seminars. In order to create consistency in writing, we hope to extend our building-wide writing format to the elementary level so that students feel confident once they reach the middle school. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I look forward to sharing our future successes. Thank you.
If you'd like to learn more about Breakout, be sure to join us next Wednesday, November 8th, as Ms. Hudak and Mr. Carlin do a workshop for parents next Wednesday night. So we're going to turn it over to the math department, which is led by Kim Howlett and Kathy Keene, so they can tell you a little bit about the math, some of the trends and some of the things that they are doing there. And in case you don't remember from last year, they love data. They are all about the data all the time. So we're going to keep them to their slides because they would keep you here all night because they love data that much. So come on up, Kathy and Kim.
We promise we won't be too long. No. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. You know that you're here for the children. You're not here for us. But we want to highlight, and we're looking forward to hearing from you guys. We want to do a special plug to Mrs. Weiss and your committee, because without you, we can't move forward with technology. And it's been a little harder in math, but that's one of the things we're going to try to do this year. And she's come aboard and already has jumped ahead and said we'll do whatever we can with the CBT testing, which I'll explain later on in our slideshow. All right, so we're going to start a little bit with some statistics, some comparison rates, as you can see from the 6th grade, 7th, and 8th. So if you look at the 6th grade, you see that we stayed the same. We ranked number 10 from our previous year. Then you look at number 4 in Ulster County and then down. But the problem I'm seeing, as you heard in the ELA, is that the opt-out rates have a lot to do with this. So they take the ELA test first, and by the time they get to us, we have more opt-outs. We're just seeing that whether they're giving up or they're just kind of like they're done with it. That I feel is part of what the trend is, what we're seeing. We're hoping that this year will be a little different, and as they already stated, going from the 3 days to the 2 days will be a help. About the 7th.
The 7th grade math, we were at number 9 in Orange County out of 17 school districts that participate, and we're down from number 6 for that ranking. In Ulster County, we were 4 and down from number 2. So that's out of 9 schools in Ulster County. 8th grade, number 8 in Orange County, as you can see, up from number 14. Number 4 in Ulster County, only out of 9 schools, up from number 8. And sometimes you have to look pretty closely at the data there, because the students who are in the accelerated program do not take the 8th grade state exam. Typically those students would assess to be a high 3 or a 4. Instead, they're taking the algebra regents in June. So all of our students passed with a 100% passing rate, and as Damian said earlier, they're automatically categorized as proficient on the 8th grade exam, even though they didn't technically sit for it.
Although we show growth over the last 3 years, we want to continue to look at ways we can support and improve our program. And we're always looking, and we want to thank Rotman Heck for always giving those opportunities over the summer, and for you as the board for approving that, and Deb and Damian for being so supportive. But we want to continue to work with number sense and fraction fluency, which is something we really want to continue on that upward trend with. We've analyzed the data from last year as well. We looked at the STAR assessment. We thank you guys for bringing Karen Brooks in to kind of break that down for us and, on our PD day, just to help us look a little bit further to see what areas we can continue to work on. One of the areas we brought, and we thank you guys for approving that, is the ALEX program, which got approved. And that's something we're looking at in our lab classes to actually help. And Mrs. Howell's going to talk a little bit about the ALEX, but that's one way to help that group kind of grow a little bit further and hit them on their domains in the ways that we can't do individualized in the classroom. We can, but this ALEX program is going to move them even at home and then beyond.
So just to briefly identify what ALEX is, last year we piloted it for between 6 and 9 months with our lower achievers in math. So we use them for math lab students and special class math. And it's a artificial intelligence program, so it uses cognitive thinking, which is, I would say, to draw an analogy, it's a computer that's actually doing the closest you can do to human teaching, making decisions and collecting data. So what we found to be fabulous about that is if you have a math lab of about 10 or 15 students, each student having a different deficiency, students can be on the Chromebooks one at a time, and then teachers can meander through and individually see the differentiated lessons that's digital and it's all web-based. So we were able to share our success with some of the high school teachers and Math 9, and also I believe the 5th grade and elementary may be piloting it this year as well.
What we're currently doing right now is we're continuing to work as a department to really strengthen what we have, and we're very big on vocabulary building. So what we do is we get a lot of the children from 5th grade will say, oh, what'd you do with Mr. Beck and Miss Bagachis? And we go from there and we take them to another level with vocabulary. And then we do singing, we do dancing, same sign out and keep different signs. Okay. We come up with all different modalities and things that we can do to help with that vocabulary. And then by the time they go to 7th and they go to 8th, they stop the song so much a little bit, but they continue that same vocabulary, so the kids are continuing to build on that. Very big with vocab.
Additionally, our math department had 3 new teachers enter the building last year, so we were proud of the fact that we were able to stay in the level of achievement that we stayed in for both Ulster and Orange Ulster BOCES. And we kind of attribute that to the PD that we were allowed to have, our department meetings, our collaborativeness, and we also tried to one of the challenges we find in math is since obviously every grade foundationally builds and sends students to the next level, we were able to coordinate some of our PD days with Robin's help, and 6th grade math teachers were able to collaborate and go through some practices and pedagogy type things, as well as the 8th grade math teachers with the 9th grade high school math teachers, which again across buildings is a bit more challenging. We have the opportunity here with 6, 7, and 8 to collaborate every day. So we specifically made an attempt and were very successful at achieving that this year.
We also work hand in hand with our special ed department, and without them to help us within our inclusion classes, Damien, you talked about that slide. We are growing in that area. Without those people, I can't tell you what it means to us. That help and support is really making those children move in many different ways. I also want to thank our support staff, Ms. Plover. Without you in 6th grade, I'm going to tell you right now, these kids need to see it, they need to retain it, they need to keep doing it day after day. And again, trying to do it in a fun way, because after a while you do a math and then another period of math. It gets to be, overwhelming. And then some of these kids are staying after school for math, and on top of that, they're getting tutored. So you have to make it motivating. And again, without those people and that collaboration, it wouldn't be possible.
We continue to work together at grade level for grading policy consistencies, and also during the summer PD, we met and added more detail to our curriculum maps and had them posted on the website. So the curriculum maps were updated to be more specific and make sure they were consistent and in parallel to the content that we were expected to teach.
We also like just jumping into teachers' classrooms and observing them and kind of looking at ways that they're doing, especially when you get a little frustrated and you're like, wow, they could work for you, but they're not working for us. So we like to jump in, and Deb and Damien has given us that opportunity, and they freed some time up in the schedule to have the newer staff and even staff that we work with on a daily basis come in and just work and see our program. Because not necessarily are they watching they can follow our maps, but seeing that instruction time is so valuable so that they, again, can carry on that vocabulary and continue. For the future, we're looking for ways that we can look for more PD. We're looking at CBT testing for the future. So right now we're working again closely. Robin set up eDoctrina for us, which was our first PD. We're looking at different ways we can get the kids used to taking tests online. They are tech savvy, let me tell you. But we also have to get them to try it on their own and figure out ways that they can use drop-down menus such as equation editor and those types of things. So we're not losing points on a test just because they don't know how to use the program. And right now we only know, last year as we go to our math department meetings in Goshen, we find out that Goshen used it last year and it was successful. It's just there's a lot of quirks and little things we got to figure out along the way, and starting it early is a good thing. So the push is there, and we're ready. And we just want to increase that vertical alignment. Once we do that with the grades and we work with 3 up, and we can articulate and have those meetings, I think we're just going to move in a positive direction. So again, enough about us. We want to start hearing these guys behind us. So Deb, Damien, thank you.
We've been focusing a lot on improving our science curriculum, and we're really excited about the direction that science is going. So here to talk a little bit about science is Lily Collins.
Evening. So I will talk a bit about data. As scientists, we're kind of data nerds as well. But we also don't have nearly as much testing. So in a lot of ways, we don't have as much data to work with and to analyze. And our focus right now has been on looking at what we're doing with our programming and how we're teaching science and looking at the best ways to be doing that. So we're really, really interested in focusing on increasing our STEAM program. Right now it's in the 6th grade, but we're building this whole maker space and this entire room where our students can go in and do hands-on stuff, technology-driven stuff, create stuff, hopefully in our STEAM classes, but also in all of our science classes. So we're really excited about this space. It's in the works. We're still building it up, but I think it's going to be a really amazing opportunity for our students. And part of building overall project-based inquiry science, PBIS programming, the more students are doing science, hands-on stuff, connecting it to math and ELA and all of these other subjects, the more we feel like we've been a success. It's not just these little facts here and there that they need to memorize for a test they get to in 8th grade. But science should be seen as a huge part of their lives. And we want them to get that excitement about doing science and being scientists. And we really think this makerspace we're building and this increased focus on STEAM is going to help do that. Part of doing that is that we are completely rewriting our curriculum. New York State put out some new science standards, and we kind of use that as an opportunity to look at what we're doing, look at when we're teaching things, how we're teaching things, what we need to expand on, what we need to cut back on, so that we can have more time for the hands-on stuff, so we can build knowledge from year 6 to 7 to 8 that carries through to high school. Right now, we have a program where they see earth science in 6th grade and not again till 10th grade. So how are they connecting that? How are they remembering that? And so we really are looking at these new standards, looking at the 8th grade science test and asking exactly what should we be teaching, when should we be teaching it, to increase our science programming. We can go to the next slide. So we don't have nearly as much data to work with. We don't have a 6th grade science test, the 7th grade science test. We just have the 8th grade science test and our advanced science living environment in 8th grade. So I know we've had the data in other board meetings about how we compare to other schools, and I wanted to kind of take that data and look at it in a slightly different way. I wanted to know how are we doing in teaching science? So if I look at these two graphs here, we've got our percentage of students in our Regents class at mastery, right? We already talked about how they all passed. They all passed the Regents. But mastery, right, our high level, 85 or higher, we've been on a steady increase. So that tells me we're doing better and better every year at teaching science. But when you look at our 8th grade science scores, they're not doing as well. And they're not doing as well as even at the elementary level. So I started to ask why. And when I made a graph, when I looked at the data of our our opt-out rates, there's a pretty strong correlation between the decline in students taking the exam and our decline in science scores. And when we look at our level 4s on the 8th grade science exam, they're all the same students who were in the advanced Regents course. So all of those students opting out are hurting our scores on the 8th grade science exam. So to me that says we're actually doing a good job teaching science, but all of these opt-outs kind of make the data look differently than that. And that's part of what we do as scientists and say, well, the data says one thing, but is the data really accurate? Is it showing the right things? Are we looking at it the right way? And so, to me, this says we're actually doing a pretty good job with science, but opt-outs make our scores look different. Opt-outs don't give us a good picture of our student body or how we're doing in science. Other data things I just wanted to highlight we've been doing a recycling program here for a couple years now, but last year we actually started collecting data on that. And last year alone we took over 3,000 pounds of recycling from the bins in the rooms. So as the students went around, they were measuring it. We got a whole spreadsheet. We're continuing that through this year. So not only are we doing the recycling, helping the environment, but we're looking at the impact with that data. I also wanted to highlight on here the Hudson River Eel Project, which we've been involved with for a few years, which is also about collecting data, but that is working with scientists from the DVC and the Carey Institute to collect data on eel migration. So our students who go out and do that are collecting data for local scientists from a larger data set. And it's, I think, a really exciting opportunity that I'm hoping we will do more of in the future, looking for more things like that and more opportunities. Which gets me to increased student involvement. One of our goals is really just increasing visibility of science. What are we doing? We want to take more field trips, we want a science fair, we want people walking around the building seeing science, seeing kids doing science, seeing science on the walls, seeing kids out in the community working with scientists, and a lot of collaboration both within the school and with other subject areas and outside the school with the community. We really would like to see some increased state test buy-in because we do feel it makes it very hard for us to look at our data and look at how we're doing when particularly our top scoring science students are opting out of that. We don't have a lot of data to work with as far as state scores, so when they opt out of that test, it makes a pretty big difference. And we're really looking at increasing student interest in science and their readiness moving into high school. We want to see our kids moving on and feeling like they're prepared to take chemistry and physics and electives in high school and not just their required science courses. So yeah, we're very excited about all these changes and we're hoping they're going to make a difference and get students even more excited about doing science.
Thank you. So we just want to briefly address how we plan on meeting our goals for 2017-2018, and as you can tell from the teachers who just spoke, we are every day we are working towards improving student achievement and always making sure that our programs are the best that they possibly can be. So we are happy to say that we, through last year's budget process, have increased our AIS reading services for 7th and 8th grade students. And we do share our teacher with the high school, and Megan Kalmus is here, and she is doing a great job helping develop those reading programs and those necessary services for our students. We also made some adjustments based on our teaming, as we have now resumed having 5 academic teams, 2 in 6th grade, 1 pure 7th, 1 shared 7th, 8th, and 1 8th grade academic team with our 4 core teachers, so the English, Math, Science, and Social Studies. So we're really excited about having those back in place, and we continue to hope that as we move forward that we can align a Spanish teacher to each of the 7th and 8th grade teams. And we've also focused on making sure that our special ed teachers, where they have some areas of expertise, is aligned to what they're helping support on those teams. And we continue to use multiple measures of assessment, since we do have such a large number of opt-outs still. We are excited to say that we will be developing that makerspace that Lily spoke about. And I can also tell you that if you're not fully sure what a makerspace is, we did have a short video, but I figured we'd save that and post this online, and encourage you once again to come next Wednesday and hear about the makerspace, as Robin Hecht and John Morallo are going to do a parent workshop on makerspace and talk a little bit more about our STEAM opportunities. And we have implemented our one-to-one Chromebook initiative for our 8th grade this year, and we continue to focus around our attendance, because in order to make all of these things happen, we need students here in the building learning every day. So that is why it's such an important focus of ours, and that they are engaged, and that they feel that they belong here, and they feel that they are part of our family, part of our team. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Sandmeyer to wrap it up.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Clinton. The students here are doing a wonderful job. I've never heard the cafeteria so quiet before. Thank you. I know you're getting answers. We want you here tomorrow, not sleeping in. So this is our last slide. These are some things that we're doing to create that culture of belonging, giving every student a reason to be here, a hope to be excited to come to school and to be successful. As everyone's mentioned, we have Power Up Night next week. A few other things that we're going to have there, because they've been mentioned earlier. We're going to have a Drugs in Our Community workshop by Officer Vetter. I know Mrs. Reed spoke about that, so we are doing that next week. We have a workshop called The Teenage Brain by Mrs. Krakulich and Mr. Kalaga. We have a School Resource Officer workshop, a Chromebook, the Makerspace stuff. So please come out next week if you can to see those things and learn about those items. Second item, our staff is amazing. They participate beyond belief. We have a very inclusive staff. They work and help on every team that we have, data teams, safety teams, Olvea, Schools to Watch, technology, homework committees. This year, our Olvea's focus is belonging. So Mrs. Garita and Mrs. Kellogg have really worked hard to create lessons that focus on belonging, on team building, on cooperative activities, to really, again, hone and practice and get better at working together and accepting each other and valuing each other. We have a renewed use of the Student Development Committee to develop systems and programs. SWAT, which is going to be November 30th here, comes from that. Diversity Night in March. Reward events, called Being Good tickets, weekly raffles, some of that PBIS stuff, not the science kind, but the positive behavior interventions in schools. Attendance Committee, mentoring program, we're in our second year of that. Last year we had 24 students mentored by 20 different staff members. This year we're at 15 students. Throughout the year those numbers increase as staff get to know their students and which students would benefit from a mentor. The idea of that is to give students another support, another person that they trust and can go to in the building if they're not feeling like they're connecting somewhere. You know, for students that are, maybe not doing a sport and they don't feel like they belong or fit in. So that's been a wonderful thing. I know Mrs. Hudak has some students come back from the high school that she mentored last year and that they're doing wonderful. So anecdotally, that program last year had a very positive success on a few students for sure. Lastly, this is what I'm very proud of, everything tonight, but this item here is our increased offering of clubs. and the 89% mark that you see. So we went through, and every student is on a spreadsheet, and we went through and added sports, clubs, if they went to Frost Valley, if they're doing the TV studio, tech squad, games club, FCLA, creative writing, book club, girls on the run, drama, mentorship, SWAT, student of the month, and we hit 89% of students fell somewhere on that, had at least one of those items that they're doing that they accomplished. So that's just wonderful, and we're going to look at the other 11% and find out how we could get them involved, how we could get them to participate and be recognized too. So we're using this data to really hone in and find the students we can help and just track it throughout time. So without further ado, guys, you're doing wonderful. I would like to turn it over to Mrs. Wolf and Mrs. Orlando to give us some sort of special show tonight. Thank you.
Now that is a very unusual hat. I wonder what's under a hat such as that. It may be a creature they call the gazette, who bounces things on his head because it's flat, or a striped loving pipes are from upper-mouth bat, or a sort of a, kind of a, hat-wearing cat. I can see that you've got kind of mind for your age. Why, one thing, and you drive me wild to the stage. Now that I'm cute, there's no telling what may exist. But the cat thinks me, and I think of, like you, oh, the things you can think, oh, the things you can think, if you're willing to try. Think invisible things, or jump with the stick, or steer in the sky. Think, open your mind, oh, the things you would find, climbing up to get loose. Oh, the things you can think when you think about Zeus! 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 Zeus, 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 Zeus! Oh, the things you can think, anything who thinks can come up with a few. Think a trip on a ship to the member of it, or to Sala Salute. Think a beautiful swamp with a cherry on top. You don't need an excuse. All the things you can think when you think about Zeus, 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 Zeus. Think of an owl that lives up in a tree. Think of a person too tiny to see. Think of a bird with a one-feathered tail, going on an adventure down a dangerous trail. Ah! Think of a bird who flies off and is free. Think of a king who brews sours can't be. Think of some monkeys with trouble in store. Think of something horrible and scary, something sinister and scary that you never dared to think of before. Think of nobody here, and the feeling of fear, and the darkness of night. All alone in your room, as you're facing your doom. Think of little of light. Ah, but I hope you're prepared to be scarier than scared, 'cause this ain't Mother Goose. Think it was right on the brink when you think about Zeus. Zeus, 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 Zeus.
Excellent job. It is truly a pleasure to be the principal of all things. I'm going to turn it over to the director of all things.
So there is a team of 4 of us this year, and I am so happy. Hello. Thing one and thing two adults, you know. Miss Orlando is my right-hand woman. She is a choreographer. She comes up with all the dances. This year we have 35 songs. It's intense. They only practice this for 5 rehearsals. So we are so excited to have a group like this year. You guys rock. You're enthusiastic, which makes us enthusiastic. We are joined by Mr. Hicks this year. So happy to have a male representative. And from the elementary school, where'd she go? Miss Taddeo in the back. And guess what? This is only a third of the drama club. We have 53 members this year, 5 boys. So we're gonna get up in numbers there. And we have 13 more days left in the gymnasium because we share with athletics, because we're good like that. But if this is what they can do in 5 days, 35 songs, we hope you join us February 23rd, 24th, and 25th, because it's all about Seuss. On November 15th, we are going to Anastasia on Broadway. We are taking a course run by the cast of Anastasia, which we're super excited about. And I'm sure they're going to come back full force with even more knowledge. So we're really happy to share that with you.
So this is my second year as a member of the community, especially in the Marlboro Middle School. And it's also my second year of having the pleasure of being a co-director with Miss Wolf and working with such a wonderful cast. So I would like to give them a round of applause one more time. There really isn't anything I can say that my co-director, Miss Wolf, hasn't already said. We are extremely proud of the talent and of the hard work that these children show up to rehearsal with every single day. And I've been in the performing business for quite a while, since I was much, much younger than them, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth. And, well, you know. I am constantly in awe of the things that I see that these guys can do. I'm very impressed. Especially, I would like to give a quick shout out to my dance captains. That's something new that we did this year. I think it's so important for the students to have leadership roles within an organization that, yes, and our stage managers, costume managers, sound. It definitely is a collective effort, and so we like to acknowledge those who have stepped up to those positions within the drama club to help make it what it is. So I look forward to continuing working on the show this year. We have a lot of great things in store, and this is only the beginning. Bless you! What was that, thing 38? Who's hiding back there?
Children, before you leave today, I want you to hand thing 1 or thing 2 your bag. The bags are going to go back to my classrooms. Okay, thank you.
Also, before we close out too, I know that the Board of Education has a bunch of questions, and certainly maybe some people from the audience have questions about the presentation, so let's not clear out quite yet, if you don't mind. All right? So maybe if you're done, Ms. Clinton, we could open up the floor.
Yes, that concludes our presentation for this evening. So we'll take any questions that you may have. And again, thank you to all of the parents who brought all of your wonderful things with you tonight.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. That was amazing. I mean, really, such talent here in the middle school. In regards to your goals for 2017-18, I see the overall goal is to become an essential elements school. Can you just give me some information about what that actually is?
Sure. So it's a designation of middle schools throughout the state of New York that are recognized for their academics, the programs that they offer. It really looks at the elements of the whole child, so the academic, emotional components, all of our programs. So we're going to be completing the application form to identify areas where we may still need to grow our programs. But again, over the past 3 years, as we've implemented things back very strategically, I feel that we're now ready to actually go ahead and apply for that. Each year, they have a state conference that I attend in Albany as a middle school liaison with the state, and the state comes and presents to the group. So I get to see some of the other programs that are recognized as essential schools, and I know what we have here now, and I really believe that we have all of that criteria. So it does look at the entire program, the academics, as well as all of the offerings that the school has. So.
Also, too, in regards to math, I see that for your state testing, 7th and 8th grade math jumped up considerably from 7th to 8th grade. What do you think is a contributor of that?
Are you looking at the cohorts as they move?
I'm looking at 6th through 8th state testing math. So I see 7th grade math and then 8th grade math. I see that from 7th to 8th grade, the ranking jumps up. So I was just wondering, what do you feel that's contributing to from 7th to 8th grade and the jump?
Improvement from 7th and 8th grade, what do you attribute that to?
Well, I say basically, communication is key within our department. Yeah, 2-hour department meetings. Yeah. We have spent a lot of time collaborating and seeking out what we feel to be weaknesses and looking for opportunities to be in one another, visiting each other's classrooms, probably at least once every 3 weeks, which we really have not done before. Because of the fact that we have staff, we spent a lot of time, abundant amount of time trying to assimilate 50% of our new employees to be on the same page, because that's quite a large percentage of new people. And the chemistry was good, and we get along, which I think is a really excellent way to be successful. I think we spent a lot of time communicating in our minutes to Robin and to Mr. Brooks about things that we felt were strong in areas that we had concerns, and I think they were very attentive at all levels, academically, socially in the building. Mr. Bacasius this year, we had a lot of new teachers come in. We needed new technology because we had multiple teachers working in the same room. We found that to be, a lot of attentiveness, I think, and a lot of attention to areas, and we're into it.
It's good, thank you. Also, too, let me see. I think it was with ELA, maybe Alicia, you said that you learned more ways to perceive the data. I was just wondering if you could give me an example of that.
So, we've been using STAR for a while. We've been looking at some of the basic reports. And
Thank you. When we met with Karen, she was able to show us reports that we didn't even know existed. So there were all sorts of ways to look at it, whether, usually we look at it in like a linear fashion, but this was showing us like these kind of bubble reports. I don't even know what you would call this thing. There were these bubbles, these like, they look like big bubbles. But they showed us, they gave us a great visual of where we were at. And just looking at it in a different way. It's probably better for us to look at it that way than in the more mathematical, linear sense. So I think it made more sense to us. It's just, yeah.
I want to piggyback too, because I do ELA and math as well, but I also want to, like looking at the annotated questions, it really bothers us when we see like, oh my God, we work so hard on this standard in the core, and we say, why are we still not getting the percentages we want? And we're always looking at ways to just like reteach it in a different way, and we're constantly, I'm telling you, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it has to do to figure out, can I come up with 5 different methods that I can just put out there when we teach and just make it happen. So we're always looking at annotated questions and taking those state questions and putting it in different ways, whether it's a do now or an exit slip, and just trying to multiple ways, for them to learn and realize that it's not just one way. So in ELA and math, it's the same thing. If you're struggling with that skill, then we're pulling them in during our lunch periods. We're pulling them in after school, kind of hoarding in on just that one area. Like, why are they not getting it? And again, just not sleeping, I think, because we want them to. And yeah. But always looking at those questions and examining. Some of them you can just say and throw out because you're just like, there's ways that 5 different math teachers or ELA teachers will look at it and say, oh my God, this question just is not a good question. And we have to kind of get over that. But it really, even with the math, ELA has to trump everything. And I tell my students that in the class. I said, ELA is first. So when it comes to that CBT testing, we're really, we're nervous, but at the same time, they are so tech savvy that they're probably going to teach us things. But really, we just got to work as a unit. I think we constantly do that. And we let those kids know. I think if you're going to walk into any of our classrooms, I think you need to realize first that, is that the type of teacher I would want teaching me? And you have to motivate. Just continue being their cheerleader. So for us, I think they just continue to grow. You start out 6th grade, and then they continue. It might be little, but even in that special ed department we talked about in that one slide, you might still see 1s and 2s, but if you really look at the cohort follow through, they are improving. They really are. So,
also, the state, they're now released 75% of the questions, which is, we did not have that to look at prior. So it was maybe 25%, then 50%, 75% is the most they've ever released. So that's really huge, as well as the in-house scoring that we've done over the last couple of years was very eye-opening and helpful.
Interesting, thank you. A couple quick questions, and then I'll open it to you all. Girls on the Run, what is that?
I'm going to the experts. I wasn't prepared for this. Girls on the Run is a nonprofit organization that is run all across the country to encourage girls to be girls and be proud of being a girl. They set goals through activities that are running based, but it's not a competitive, you're not timing yourself. It's about setting personal goals and meeting those goals and working together and, girl power. That's really basically what it is. It ends with a 5K with all of the Hudson Valley teams. It's typically held at NEMA in Cornwall. There's actually a fall season right now. They're running their 5K November 18th, I believe, down in Rockland, Spring Lake. So it's Hudson Valley is Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Ulster, Dutchess, this whole area. We participated in the 5K at NEMA in the spring of last year. I think there was, how many people? 1,200 people there. It was a really big event. We had 15 girls in the team last year. We're hoping to do it again this spring.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And NaNoWriMo, you're piloting it, or do you have participation this month?
We do.
Awesome.
Mr. Carlin decided to have his classes tried out, so I'm like, you can take that pilot, and if it works out, then we'll maybe look into it, for the whole entire class next year. But they're writing 10,000 words in a month, so.
I'm very excited about that because
Yeah.
I too am doing NaNoWriMo, but I'm doing 50,000 words.
Yeah,
so
this is for this level.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
this level's
But
10,000.
it's just very exciting to see it. And I was just wondering how much participation you had.
Well, it's a requirement in his classes. Yeah, it was here. You could talk about it.
Yeah, so right now I'm just doing it with my 8th graders because they're the ones who have the Chromebooks, so it's easier to implement. Throughout October, we were working through the site. There's a lot of guides to help them come up with their ideas, so November 1st doesn't see them staring at a blank page. There was some trepidation at first. A lot of them, I can't even write 100 words. I can't write 1,000, 10,000. But as we got through it, they started to get more and more excited. I told them, I don't want you really getting into the writing until November 1st. November 1st came yesterday, and I had at least half a dozen kids drop a few thousand words already, and they're like, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but start early. I'm not going to dissuade that at all.
That's great.
I upped their challenge. I have some who are writing 12. I have one who I've challenged to write 20 because she already wrote 10,000 words in the last 2 weeks. So she's writing 20, but yeah, my 8th graders are doing it, and they're really enthusiastic about it right now.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions regarding the Regents, the students that take the Regents and how those tests get brought into the measurement. So is this an advanced, there's Regents in living environment, are they advanced classes that are actually high school level classes? Okay, so that's why they take Regents. So what, I caught something that said the Regents tests are automatically assumed to be proficient in the middle school measurements. Did I understand that right, or I got
Passing rate. If you pass the Regents, then you're considered proficient for a state test on the 8th grade assessment.
But you showed the measurements separately. Like, here's the numbers and here's the numbers with the Regents. So are they not calculated as they reported into the state, or?
Want to take that one, Robin? They're not.
There's
But
actually,
you want
yeah,
to.
there's actually a duality to it. In the reports that are available now, they're not included in it. In the accountability report that we get in the springtime, it's brought together. So they count for accountability status. But when you look at it, you see 20 or 30% of the kids passed the corresponding subject. But it's because 100% of the 30 kids passed the Regents now. That's just not calculated into the calculus.
All right, so that's why you separated them.
Right,
Okay.
and if they were part of that class, they would have gotten grade.
Right, okay. And are those grades then calculated in the high school numbers? Since they're high school tests?
Yes.
They are. Okay. All right, thank you. I do have one thing I do want to say. Before as a board member and even as a board member, we've had many conversations about what I believe is the need to go look beyond the state tests as measurements of your success. And I do understand the need for the tests and the importance of people taking the tests and what you do with them. But I want to just point out that I think during this presentation today, I saw several examples of exactly what I've been trying to say, and probably not saying very well. And the examples I saw is, number one, the science chart, where you took data and said, look, if you look at it differently and you do a few things, it shows something that doesn't show with just the state data. And then another good example of things I call non-quantitative and qualitative data is what you're talking about as far as the creation of a sense of belonging and how you're measuring the increase in attendance and participation in clubs and whatever else goes into that. To me, that's another example of like a soft data point where it doesn't necessarily hard data like a state test, but it shows the things you're doing are improving. And then there's a couple other things you just mentioned where you look at things differently. And I think that's so, I'm just really happy to hear that. I wanted to commend you that you're doing that in many ways and actually showing it to the community and the parents, because I do think when you look at the state exams and the opt-out rate, there's a level of inaccuracy there. Even if it went the other way, it's still a level of inaccuracy. So by being able to support it with your own view of how you look at things, because you're there, you're in it, right? So I just want to point that out. Just also for my fellow board members who we've had many conversations about what I really mean and what I want and why it can't be just what I want and so forth. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is exactly it. So it's like smiling the whole time, ready to it's like I got to remember to say.
I knew you were very excited throughout this entire presentation.
Perfect, but one other thing, and I'm going to actually be running a Power Up Night class, so I won't be able to sit in it, but can you give a short description of what this makerspace is actually going to be? I don't want to ruin this, unless if it's a surprise and you don't want to bring it up.
No, I'm going to turn that back over to Robin because she's very excited. She told me today that about her presentation, so maybe she'll give you a 30-second commercial.
I don't want to tell you.
That's fine. We'll do that.
But are you asking about the makerspace presentation or the one that's going to be here?
The one that's going to be here, just in general, how you define what a makerspace is without giving away your detail. I have an idea what I think that is, but...
Well, we can explain that because we have a space that's allocated now downstairs, and I'm going to give it to Lily for a second.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's basically like a big playroom. But it's a playroom, with design in mind, with scientific thinking in mind, but at the same time a lot of freedom. So we're hoping to be able to use it kind of in two ways. One in a very directed way where teachers are going in with specific lessons to teach skills about how to use certain tools. We've got 3D printers, circuit boards, all sorts of things like that. How to actually use some of those tools to create things. But the second goal with that is having kids who can say, I have a question, or I have something I want to try with this, and having the confidence or the support to really go in and, in a sense, play with that stuff and learn in the process.
I've been to a Maker's Space
Maker's
event fair, yes, at New Paltz. Is that basically the concept with maybe some more formality wrapped around it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you can take a makerspace in a lot of different directions. So I think we're trying to all decide together exactly how we want ours to look. But that is kind of the gist of it.
Okay, thanks. That sounds really interesting. Is this where the grant money is going that you want? Oh, that's perfect. I'm good, thanks. Thank you.
Okay, I have maybe a quick one, we'll see. As far as ELA on the opt-outs, we see grade 6 went down, 7th and 8th went up. Yet when we look at the state testing, grade 6 went down, 7th and 8th went up. And I was wondering why that was. What is the correlation there?
So more students who take the test give you a greater cross-section of the students. So I think you're seeing sometimes that the students who are opting in may not have taken the test in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade and come to us now and they're starting to take the test. I think some of the movement has shifted. So I think as you see more students opting in but taking it for the first time, sitting for that duration of 3 days can feel really overwhelming. So I think sometimes that's where you're going to get a little bit of that correlation of that dip in the 6th grade numbers as you see an increase in students taking it. So, we have 8th graders in the building right now who have not taken an assessment, a state assessment. Obviously, we give them all kinds of other assessments. But I think our concern, and something that we want to continue to look at with the high school, is that going to start to impact some of them as they move to take these Regents exams that you can't opt out of. So it's a little bit of a concern because we're really kind of in the thick of it right now. But the good news is last year, more students at the elementary school took it. So as they continue to come to us, hopefully they'll feel comfortable. We have a little bit of a concern with the CBT to see how that translates and what it does to our numbers next year, or this coming spring. So there's a lot of variables. I don't know if it's a one clear answer. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. But. Any other questions?
And actually, if I could like to make a couple of statements. I mean, there's really some things that I'm quite proud of that these folks have done. The people that really have done it have left already, the kids, but the facilitators are here, and please make sure you tell your colleagues how much I appreciate that, because even just hearing a child tonight say, we focus on academics, arts, and athletics, just takes my heart to great places. I mean, that is the big picture. It's not just about academics. It's not just about arts. It's not just about athletics. It's about the whole piece. So thank you. Thank you very much. I even heard a few of you say it, so thank you. But focusing on making things very simple. Are we teaching the right things, and are we teaching the right things well? It really is about that. The details of that are very complex. But if you keep that as your central focal point, you won. That's really what it comes down to. So thank you. We really are going to see some benefits in the long run with now a K-12 continuum for ELA, writing and reading support with literacy specialists. We have a K-12 continuum now. Such an important element. We were missing pieces there. That's going to pay off in droves in the long run in this marathon that we have here. You heard a little bit about Tech Squad. These are volunteer students that are tech specialists, meaning if your stuff's broken, they're there to fix it. So they're learning some skills not just on the computer side, but also on customer service side and how to work with people and how to diagnose issues. Oh my gosh, what a whole nother dimension of learning that can happen there. I do want to also commend you. Tonight was unfiltered. You put out the belly of the beast. When there are some problems, you put it out there. You're not hiding the stuff. We do have issues. We do have things we need to work on. But what did you say? We look at it, we get introspective, and try to figure out a way that we can do better next time. That's it. That's it. So thank you. You know, it's interesting. Tomorrow, Robin and I are going to be going to a workshop. I'm not exactly sure the title, but it's something about looking at what graduates in the year 2030 are going to need. We think that's a long way off. Those are our kindergartners. Our kindergartners are the class of 2030. So that's going to be a really interesting workshop. Class of 2030. We should, yes. So I can't wait to see that workshop and hear what they have to say to us, because quite honestly, when you're talking about building for the future, that's what we have to keep our eye on. Where do we want to be in 2030? Because that's where our kindergartners are going to be as they step across that graduation stage. So thank you for tonight. Appreciate it.
I know Ms. Giacoya and her students will be upset if you don't make sure you take a snack. And I also just want to acknowledge the artwork that that came from our art students over in the back. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment on agenda items. Should you have a comment, please approach the podium and state your name, town of resident, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, moving on to number 4, consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the consent agenda items such as the unofficial board meeting minutes from September 7th and 28th, October 5th and 19th, with personnel recommendations and CSE, CPSE reports, the contract for Discovery Ed, the attorney waiver, and Wappingers School District intermunicipal agreement, and a tax correction as presented. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items? James, second. Joanne. Any discussion?
I just have one, explain, the increase in the 0.5 typist and marks 2.5.
Yes, that was the position we spoke about last time. That is the reconfiguration of the greeter position. Instead of hiring a greeter it's the reconfiguration of the greeter position at the elementary school. Instead of hiring a greeter, we had 2 part-time greeters, a 5-hour and a 2.5-hour greeter. We're going to retool that as a clerk typist. It's a clerical position. So they'll be able to do much more, doing the same job, also greeting, but also doing some clerical work out of the desk. It's part of that reconfiguration.
Hey, Mike, this is completely independent on what you're doing with the library and the library aid, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got confused when I first saw this.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. Be patient. Motion has been carried 5-0. Moving on to number 5. Have any old business you'd like to discuss? New business.
I just want to make a mention that in support of what we heard today and all the activities and investments for STEAM, this weekend on Saturday, IBM is hosting an IT Expo for 6 school districts across the Hudson Valley, most across the river, but Marlboro is part of that. And we're sent in 17, maybe 18 students have signed up to attend. It's going to be a full day of all different STEAM and science activities with a scientist doing a show and various activities, food, breakfast, etc. But we have 17 or 18 out of 30 positions available, people who are going. We have 2 parents who are going to, or maybe 3, who are going to be chaperones. And while we didn't get the 30, when we compared to the other school districts, which were much larger, nobody really got to the 30. School districts like Newburgh didn't send anybody, Arlington sent less than 30, Beacon's the only one that sent 30. And these are huge districts, right? They sent in a range of 20, 24. So we got pretty good participation, and Saturday afternoon was probably the biggest obstacle with so many out and so many things. But I just want to bring that up, is it's just one more example of where our district and our school, especially middle schools, is taking advantage of these opportunities that present itself. So. And there's still, if there's anybody that sends one in tomorrow, you just send them my way, we can get it. Sure.
Any other items? This time, I'd like to recognize district residents. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? James. Second, Joanne. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 8:58. And there is no executive session.